Jeremy instructed us to keep this light and fun, which I don't know if I'd ever describe work as light or fun, but these guys are gonna dance for you, sing for you, got the whole thing coming. I'm just a little bit of the MC. We'll do a little bit of intro, and then I guess we got 7 folks, so we gotta get through that in 60 minutes roughly, so each of you get about 7 or 8 minutes. Great. So first, I just want to thank all of these guys because they do the hard work of really 2 things. One, obviously the technical stuff that they're doing, but really mostly it's leadership and shepherding all of the volunteers and getting volunteers a lot of times is really a critical piece of that. So, echo what Art said and also what Jeremy said in that we need the volunteers, and there are fun opportunities to impact the standard. I said it to somebody last night that the great thing about RESO is if you show up, you're gonna have an impact on the standard. I mean, you literally will influence it simply by being present and voicing your views about how it should be formed. Those who do show up and voice their views, they have an impact. And so it's really cool to be able to do that and influence it. And these guys are here to help you do that. So I don't know, what are we gonna start? Should we just go this way? Or were we gonna start with you, Rob, or what? Sure, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna introduce Rob Larson here, CTO at CRMLS. This guy has been doing the dictionary for years and really driving that process. And Rob, I know I'm waiting for the whole discussion about DOM because I think it's the most interesting thing. He gave us a presentation last night, and Days on Market was the last part of it. And I was like, oh, that could be the end of RESO right there. It's not just the end. So tell us all about it.
All right. Let's see here. Maybe on here. Yeah. Okay, we're working on the slideshow. So a realtor walks into a bar. Isn't that great in this industry? You could say that and it comes across as a joke. Hey, there I am. I shaved some of the beard, not all of it. I still got no button. There you go. Data dictionary, that's me. I still got no button though. You want to hit the button for me? I'll just give you cues. There we go. Well, there's my bio. No, this looks like it's a whole different setup. All right, so here we go, and I'll give you a high sign when you change. We're on a good slide now. Why? Why are we doing this? Well, I see really 2 good reasons. If you want to go ahead and click there for me. There we go. This software developer walks into a bar, and his buddy says, yo, dude, they got 1.2 million customers, they're all professionals, and they need software tools. It's like, hey, I can make some money, right? This will be great. Then you start digging in, you got your, say, 2,000 people you're building some for, and then you realize that for the next 2,000, you got to put in hundreds of more hours adapting for them. And then the next 2,000, and you got like 600 of these to go through to make your way through that 1.2 million. And maybe you're thinking, you know what? I'll be like Microsoft and Apple, I'll sell stuff overseas. Wrong. Nobody else in the world does it the way we do. So yeah, maybe you can sell some stuff over there, but at the end of the day, you got a little bit of an issue. And then as you go through each of those 2,000, you got a risk. You got to go in and learn their language, and they're saying the same words, but maybe they're meaning a little bit different things. And you got to deal with that risk in your business. So when you take all this into account, it really makes me want to go back in time as the ghost of John Coltrane and go to Greg Robertson and say, dude, don't do it. Make software for plumbers. You'll make a lot more money. I'm glad a few of you appreciated that. So at the end of the day, we solve these problems. If you want to go ahead and switch the slides. And the 1.2 million and the 600 that are represented out there are a really good sign. You know, and yeah, we've got certifications. We really do have to focus on the utilization. You know, a lot of you have got your server out there and it's compliant. You need to push. You need to push towards getting that to where it's actually being used. It's an important aspect. But I think we're doing really good. Situations like MLSs, I'm hearing about more and more. I've had discussions with a couple that are saying, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do the dictionary all the way down into our listing input forms. And when it comes to that problem of understanding, of speaking the same fields and the same pick list items, that's a good way to do it, right? So the end users are seeing it said one way here, the same way there, and the same way somewhere else. I think it's a really important aspect. If you've got any interest in doing that in your neighborhood, definitely come grab some of us. We can sit down and tell you what it's been like going through that transition. So the footprint right now of the dictionary itself, we got 20 resources, right? So things like listing, members, open house. So we've got a lot going on there. We've got over 1,200 fields, and we've got over a couple thousand pick list items. And now with our latest work on the platinum enumeration, right, the last of our precious metals, how we broke the dictionary up into 5 pieces in order to graduate things over time. So we're on that last bit, and so far we're up over 700. I wouldn't be surprised after we get done massaging it here over the next couple months, we'll clear 800 more enumerations. So I think that's a pretty healthy set, going for that 90% utilization mark, right? The thing we have in common, let's speak the same language on. So go ahead and click that. Okay, so 1.6, we got gold, we got those enumeration done, we got showing, right? So now there is a standard for that appointment, and that's really good for brokers to pull into their back office systems, maybe to talk between showing systems, right? We also, the portal, right? Your conversation that your realtor has with their client inside a portal around a listing. So we got structure to support that. And we tackled several other things that were pretty cool. You know, we got the internet tracking work that Chris was doing, brought in there. We got a place for Mark's PUID. I still like the old name, the PUID. Now it's the Universal ID System, UPI. I'll get it straight. So a lot of good work. We got 100% of what the board asked us to get done last year, plus some other stuff. Go ahead. So 1.7, platinum enumerations. A lot of progress. We had a good level of people willing to volunteer their time to map into the group, total of 16. And we had an awful lot of values there that I picked through. I've got more details on Thursday if you want to learn more about that. The broker back office. So brokers in their back office systems have more than what we have in the MLS system. So we're talking to brokers, already have some that I've had the discussion and they're on our list, looking for more. If you do broker back office software, definitely come to the table for this one. We're going to be getting started soon on this one. Membership. So we've already got a lot of progress, right? So those member management system providers and getting some of the boots on the ground at the association level. So go back, talk to some of your association staff, the people that deal with the member management, or if that's in your purview at your MLS, if you do that as well, come forward, be part of this discussion on what that data moves around and what it should look like. Business rules, REBER, the real estate business rules system, a way of organizing people in pulling their business rules together. We figured it'd be good to have a means to be able to pass that along. So if you want to give those rules to somebody else for them to look at, this would be a vehicle for that. Lockboxes, a lot of clear association to showing. I think it's a really good aspect of other things that we can look at, data around where lockboxes were opened, when, and all that kind of stuff, building statistics and information around that listing and the activities that happen. This will be a key piece to that. A queue. Essentially, one of the main targets here is having a place that someone who's consuming the data can go in and see, here's the stuff that should be deleted. You know, in our industry, you think it would be easier, but I'm even a little bit guilty of having a situation where you've got to go look a little deeper than that to figure that simple answer out. And the queue can be used for all sorts of things. So if you're interested in that, if you're on the tech side and you're interested in how data gets replicated, definitely come to that group. And then lastly, DOM, days on market. I understand it well enough that I have no delusions that we're not going to take our 10,000 different ways of doing DOM, and how we got 10,000 ways in 600 organizations tells you something about days on market. But I think that with the same target we had for standardizing fields and lookups, that days on market has that 95 percentile. It has a few flavors under that hood, but I think that we can go out and we can say, okay, here's what days in MLS looks like. Here's what a simplified DOM looks like. Some DOMs are really straightforward and simple in their calculation. And here's some other DOMs. And really get together a short list and give them a name and some definition to start to unify us on what right now is a very eclectic business rule across our industry. So I'm looking forward to having fun with that. We got t-shirts, got DOM, got my favorite formula on here. If you want to get one of these shirts, let me know and I'll direct you to my friend's site who's going to make all sorts of money and I ain't getting jack. So one more click. So you've seen what we're working on. Anything else you want to see happen in the dictionary, you got to get involved. So we've actually got a work group meeting happening Thursday morning at 10:45. Come on down, learn how to get part of the regular group, and make your voice be heard. Thank you.
Do you need this? No? You're gonna solving our technical. Internet shooters.
Is this on?
All right, so while he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Chris Lambro, who used to be with MRED, but now is with Metro MLS in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our host next year, I guess, at the fall conference. So we're really happy to have him here to talk about internet tracking, and that's what the gist is, tracking activity when people are visiting websites and how to get those logs and analytics available across systems. So Chris, take it away.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris, the guy he just spoke about. The last couple of years has been really exciting for me. We were tasked to form a group to tackle the quest of creating a data set for Rob's Data Dictionary that would encompass the analytic information that we are starting to consume more and more. There we go. There's my beautiful portrait. Cool. So to start things off, I love slides. I love cartoon strips because they take a complex situation and they give like a bird's eye view and a general a feeling to it that makes you think and takes something very complex and makes you focus on a single point. And I think we've all been somewhere to this cartoon. You know, we've been in a meeting, whether it's with management, whether it's with your team leaders, whether it's with your coworkers, the monkeys you work with, whatever you're involved in. There's always a couple of people that really have a strong opinion, and they're normally very bright people, and every organization needs them. I call them, I have a word for them, free radicals. They're great people to work with, but then I like to be the other guy who pulls up the laptop and says, okay, you have your opinion on what's going on, and let's take a look at the data. And that's kind of the analytic aspect of where I come from, and not every decision should be made on analytics, but it's an important part in every business, especially in the reso community. And that's kind of our mindset in our work group, the Internet Tracking Work Group. We try to solve these issues that come across. Here's a really good slide that kind of explains the situation. You have your RET server, you've had it for years, it's been pushing out data, it's been providing data to all these wonderful vendors, to all these terrific brokerage firms, to all these IDX solutions out there. Well, how about we turn that around? Not only do we provide the data, but we also gather information on where it's at, how it's doing out there, where it exists. As an MLS executive, I can tell you this has a couple of different things to it. Besides knowing where the data goes and being able to help us run our business as MLS, it's also another service we can filter down to the brokerage community. We can go to a brokerage firm and say, here's where all your syndication data or your data is being syndicated to, and here's how it's doing. It's kind of an added value service as an MLS. So the internet tracking resource is a very exciting thing just from that perspective. Today we have 42 fields, 69 enumerations. We developed a solution that it kind of encompasses the main use cases, viewing a listing on different internet sites, and is kind of like from the get-go. But we've been kind of expanding. Recently, this year's been a really big year for the Internet Tracking Work Group because we've published, we are in 1.6, which is a big accomplishment. We are out there now. Development teams can go ahead and start using it in their tools. We have a white paper out there. It's kind of a one-on-one that I totally would recommend anybody who's getting involved in it read first. We handle fields a little bit differently. It's like an object-oriented thing where we try not to burden with additional fields, but we try to do less with more. And in talking to the key people who do analytics, and remember, analytics is a big chunk of data. We're talking terabytes of information consumed daily for some of the big players. So it's big data, and getting involved in big data is something that MLSs and some brokerage firms aren't really yet comfortable with. So we're going to try to par the one-on-one that we have with another white paper that kind of helps on managing big data. But the two go well together. And this year, besides being published, we are looking at new objects. Objects in the world of internet tracking are the things that are being tracked. So historically, it's been the listing, but this year we came up with a couple of new ones that we put in there. The photo, for one, is in our recent meeting we voted on and approved. The photo itself requires its own subset of analytic information. How long is it being viewed? Which number is being viewed the most? As well as document. We've published that as a new object type. Documents have a whole new plethora of analytic information as far as who's downloading, who's viewing it, whatever it is, a HUD form, a lead paint removal form, transaction management systems. We're going to reach out in our work group to the field out there in the research community for input on what kind of analytic information they're tracking and what we would need to provide as a way for that information to be transported. And transport itself was a big thing for us. Early on this year at our last meeting, we talked about transport, and the group gave us strong direction on tagging along with the web API. So the transport solution for us has been part of the OData solution that the web API is doing. For the last couple of meetings, I presented some examples of what it looks like to have our solution in an OData format with an endpoint, as well as two-way, where you can not only send out analytic information, but record it via the OData solution, the web API solution. So we're really excited about that transport because that allows somebody like an MLS executive to be able to have a dashboard of information from all their products using one display and making them more informative decisions quickly, which is really the idea of analytics and the visualization of data. And I can go on and on and on. I know you guys are really excited about that, but that's kind of where I come from. So coming forward, we have a meeting tomorrow. We're going to talk about new objects as well. Some of the things we're talking about is grouping. Imagine in every MLS or consumer site, there's a search and there's a group of listings that match. Well, imagine if that group could be encapsulated and then recorded from an analytic standpoint, where you can look at a listing and see how many it grouped up with on a regular basis, and then compare in that group how many of those sold, and then try to take a look at that from a standpoint, from a brokerage firm. Why did mine not sell and these other 3 did? And you notice, the others had hardwood floors and yours didn't. This type of grouping solution is a growing need that we see, or a future need that we see. It's not something right now. We always like to try to be a little bit ahead of the curve. Another thing we're going to look at besides documents and transaction management is the client portals. A lot of MLS systems and consumer systems have client portals. There are a different data set there that we feel is needed for the community. So that's some of the exciting stuff we're going to talk about tomorrow. 1:30, be here, be square, I guess is what they say. We meet every third Wednesday of the month. We've had great participation. We have our monthly warriors. We have our guy Sean York from Homes.com. Shout out also to Cal from FBS and the FBS team, Dyna Connections teams, as well as Black Knight, Keith and John. You guys have been terrific. There's just been some people who come in, I call them like barflies. They'll attend our meeting once in a while, then they'll come back 6 months later just to listen in, and I still appreciate that. I think it was Calvin Coolidge who once said too that listening, you never can lose a job from listening too much. So even if you just join the phone call and listen and become an advocate within your own organization, that's fine with me too. But it's a good group, it's a fun group, and we try to tackle something we're all excited about. So that's kind of what we have going on at the Transport Workgroup. Thanks.
Awesome, thanks, Chris. It is an exciting work group, but I appreciate the pitch to get people to come to your session. I encourage all the chairs to make that sales pitch too. Up next, we've got Rick Trevino. Rick is with Metrolist in Sacramento, and he's been the chair of this work group since its inception, and the board created this work group because the dictionary is awesome. It defines, when you're sending fields, how you should send them and what those fields should look like. But it doesn't really say anything about what fields should be included in, for example, an IDX payload, or when an MLS sets up a feed. Well, what should that look like? Is there a standard for that or not? So that's what this work group that Rick has been running is all about. So,
thanks, Mike. Okay, first thing I got to admit, I am one of those barflies. I've definitely participated once and twice in your work group, and it's exciting. And one of the things great you see about all these different work groups is that Rezo, I know I've talked to many people in the past and I've been here well over 10 years, but all the newbies, it's definitely challenging because you think it's really technical, that we're here, and it is a technical community, but overall we're doing the same thing. We're looking at delivering solutions, data provided for the brokers. And what we like to do is participate in this because really it's interesting, it's exciting. We all get excited about our own little thing, and we make it our mantra to make it happen. In the payloads, we are essentially a new work group. We started last year in the summer, and as Mike stated, we were chartered to look at what in the industry, what data feed do we want to shape? What's important? What's critical at this point? And really, as we looked at it, it was the IDX payload. And a payload is just a data set of fields or categories. And why is this important? That the MLSs are mandated to provide an IDX feed. And so the IDX is important. It's important as the MLSs, we have to distribute the data, and there's policies and rules. But as a consumer of the data, or the person who puts it in, the brokerage, this is your data. And as your data, you want it back. You want it back to power your websites. And if you're in various marketplaces, you'll notice there's a difference. There is no common standard. In some systems, like in ours, you may get over hundreds of fields. Other systems, you may only get 20 to 30 of fields. And this is what we were tasking. There's a lot of MLSs still doing those minimal data sets. There's not enough value to power a website. Our charter then now is looking at the IDX payload. So we started with a group of fields that spun off from the data dictionary. we're looking at them, and we methodically went through all of these fields, and essentially we just about completed doing the task a couple weeks ago. And then we say, hey, you know what? There's still some stuff missing, and that's okay. I mean, we were close to completing the payload, but we have great participation. I'm happy to say that in our group, we definitely have a cross-section of members from all the different sectors of our industry. So yes, we have the MLS vendors, we have the MLS, we even have the IDX providers. And ultimately, it's the IDX providers are getting this data from well over 600 MLSs. And as they get this data, as we know, that's the challenge in the data dictionary, is to standardize what does it look like, how can I take this data, import into my systems, engineer it so that I can display it, search on it, and that's where we're at. So our IDX provider says, we need more. We need some other stuff and some other resources. Out of those, it's just property, maybe it's open house, member and office. So we're doing a lot, and it matters to the vendors because as we start finalizing the specification, the vendors are going to have to do potentially some modification to the systems, create metadata, or maybe create a functionality past null data. So that will be coming around. As an MLS, same thing. We have to go look through it and create our REDS profiles, whether it be for the REDS or the web API, and get them in line to the specification of the payload. And of course, as the brokers, they're going to benefit from all this work that we're doing and start getting some standardized data sets. So the status is, again, we're almost wrapping it up. I anticipate going through all those fields and the new resources and having it available to the board for ratification early next year. And then it goes into specification as an endorsement, and down the road as MLSs, as you certify in your data dictionary, the endorsement requirement of the IDX payload is going to be there. Okay. Is there any challenges right now? Yes, the challenge is I need to get it done. We need to get it out there to the community and as fast as we can. And I think with the work group we have, we're going to do it. We do have this, I have a meeting with some special people next, I think in a couple days, to meet the challenges, what we call repeating elements, because we want enough to be in this data set, but we can't bloat it too much, and we have to be finite. And one of the repeating elements is other rooms. And so we're going to try to see if we can figure that out to be included in the payload. So what's next? Participation, right? Be part of it. Be part of any of these wonderful work groups or the payload work group. My work group probably is the least technical. Definitely you're welcome to join, provide your input. We will love it. We meet every Thursday, 11 o'clock Pacific time. And on site, I am, I believe, this Thursday at 12:30, right? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Next up, we've got Mark Bassett. Mark's with CRMLS in Southern California. Used to be with the Arizona Regional MLSs, which is when I first got to know him. He's a super smart guy. Comes from outside the real estate industry, which might make him the smartest guy yet. But the PUID, or I guess UPI group, we're having to change this acronym a little bit. Nobody liked to say poo, I guess. They just didn't like PUID. But anyway, so UPI is the next acronym. But this is, I actually wrote about this idea probably almost 10 years ago. And so it's so exciting to see the possibility of what Mark's group is working on and how it's going to really have a huge ramification for all the other work groups, but also really the industry all across the world if this takes off. So it's pretty exciting. Mark.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yeah, we decided to change the work group name because it just sounded kind of crappy, and I think people maybe, you know, a friend of mine said, the world is run by those who show up, and just to echo what I think we've heard here and what Mike was saying before, That's what it's all about. You gotta show up. So I thought, well, if we change the name, maybe more people show up. I don't know. We'll see. Switching? No. All right. So when I started with the work group, they had done a lot of great work on figuring out all these ways you could do a unique identifier for property, and some of them were really, really good ideas. And I started thinking about that Edison quote, right, where he's, hey, you did the light bulb, and he's like, yeah, I invented like 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb, also. So they had these great ways of doing an idea, but we really needed at some point just for the rubber to meet the road, and I think that's where we were at. So when I started with this, we picked one of the ways that they had come up with, we started expanding it, and we wanted to evaluate it for real world data, and we were really excited about it. And I was fortunate enough to have people in the work group that had access to large segments of national data, and they did the evaluations, and we navigated our way to find out, hey, let's just get the 98% case if we're lucky, and when we're in school, you get 98 on a test, that's an A, so we're happy to get an A. So that's what kind of we went, and I just wanted to point out just a few overarching things, is that we wanted to make it standards driven so that anybody can do the UPI, anyone can create one. If you have enough information about a property so you'd know it was unique. It's a reference identifier. We're not telling everybody, hey, use this. This is your new primary key for all your property data. No, not really. It's just a reference ID so that you can talk to other people about it. And I thought a key point was it's got to be simple. I mean, in the work group before that, all these ways we had come up with or that had been discussed, some of them were like just giant Rube Goldberg machines, and I don't know if you could ever make them work in a broad sense. So we proposed a model. That's kind of where we're at. So that's what I said a second ago. That's where we were at last conference. So this conference, we've actually got a proposed model ready to rock. It's in review. Anyone can go check it out right now. We built some tools around it. On Thursday is when we're going to be doing our demo and talk, and we'll have real data from Tucson, Arizona, real data from Connecticut, and we've integrated multiple property repositories for people to see how this thing actually works, where you can talk to one and then use that data and talk to another one. So it's been really exciting. So we have that ready to go for everyone to see on Thursday, and Mike's the guy who also he got me into this job. So thanks for that. Okay, that's all I had.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark. And as he referenced the document that's available for review, that reminded me of something that Jeremy told me I was supposed to remind you all about, which is hopefully you're all members of RISO, or if you're not, you should join up. But one benefit of being a member of RISO is that you get access to Confluence. So if you go to riso.org, you can log in then and see all of these documents and discussions and all of that. And if by chance you don't have access, if you are a member and you don't have access, then you can talk to registration out front, and they'll help you get onto the Confluence site. And again, it's just a way to participate, keep track of things, follow things. The discussions that are going on there are great, and ultimately you get to review all of the documents like the one Mark referenced. All right, so next up, we've got Greg Moore, who deals with the R&D group. So all the great ideas that these other guys have been talking about came through R&D. And so Greg has been running that group for a while. Take it off, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, R&D. R&D is really fun. As you can see, these guys, and I say Rick and I exchanged some email, which I thought was really cool, because he asked me, why is it fun? Did I get that right? No. Wrong way, huh? All right. And basically, my job isn't to tame this beast. It's really to feed it. We really are the beginning of the funnel, where the ideas come in. Some come to die, and others really get flushed out, and then I hand them forward. So, you know, in some ways, we're not doing a lot of the heavy lifting. You know, we do some research. You know, I get to work with all these guys, so I mean, I get to talk to them and pass things around. And then I set these things free, and you watch them come around, like the unique ID, the organizational unique ID. Lots of these great ideas, you know, come through R&D, and then they move forward, and basically they become part of the standard, which is really kind of cool. You know, what I do for my day job is I'm the VP of technology at RMLS. But really, R&D to me is about diversity, and it was really cool to see that now we have lots of brokers, which means we get another voice to really help us shape this standard. You know, before it was kind of a bunch of us geek guys with vendors and a few MLSs who'd get in a room and kick things around. And you can really see the innovation is really picked up. And that has to do with, I think, this huge group of people who are really willing to give a lot of time and effort to create this cool standard that, you know, allows us as an organization in Portland, Oregon, you know, to work across the country at this point. You know, and I say I've had lots of great opportunities in my role to talk to folks who are, you know, part of the auto manufacturing organization because they're interested in, like, natural language searching. So, you know, if you really think about the infrastructure we have, synonyms work. You know, you can find a fixer-upper, you can find a handyman special, whatever, in just plain language. So, I mean, we're watching the evolution, you know, move much faster, and a whole lot of industry really interested in us. And it's, you know, it's really exciting to see that. As you can say, you know, I run a meeting. It's once a month, so I try and, you know, prepare a few things, get some ideas together, and then basically go out and fish, if you really think about it. We're looking for where there's pain, where there's problems, those kinds of things. So if you really look at, you know, what we've accomplished, I think a huge accomplishment is the real estate business rules, using rules speak. If you think about today, innovation, think about the cool mobile product that actually could do a simple status change. You don't have to add a listing. You don't need all hundreds and hundreds of rules, but you may want to be able to mark something sold. You may want to extend an expiration date, something on your phone. And, you know, as an MLS, we don't need to be the gatekeeper. We can set that now free because we have good documentation. It can be tested. It can be verified. So I can hand something forward and let innovation fly. As we're talking about the app, front end of choice, all those kinds of things really start with, you know, some kind of clear documentation. And this is the beginning, I think. Reber can move into what are display rules. Those kinds of things can also be documented and handed out. So again, we can work with partners and drive this thing forward. We work on best practices, and often there's a lot of pain there. As we're moving from kind of the 1X standard to the API standard, things change. They change greatly when you think about your needing availability. You really can't throttle anything. You know, with 1X, you could say, you know, you can get 10,000 records and that's it, and come back in 15 minutes. With the API, you've got to be real time. You've got to be there. So again, we've got to evolve the way even we operate our own servers. So kind of the effort there, and, you know, listening to folks here in the room about brokers who have pain, trying to get, you know, their data back. You know, what's the problem with giving them an in-progress listing? They bother to add it. They need it in their back office. You know, the system's ready to do it. It's just really getting our head around it and, you know, evolving those standards. Standardized showing data, that started with us. And, you know, I was lucky. I wrote a little business case, and forward it went, and here it is coming into the standard quickly. Lockbox data, as I was talking last night to the guys, wouldn't it be cool to know how many times statistically a lockbox gets opened before an offer comes in? That broker would love that kind of data, and it's something that we can facilitate for them through Rezo. You know, we got a motion moved forward to alternate language support. So if you're supporting translations, you can actually send those out through the Rezo standard. Again, with the API, then you can support a broker who wants to be able to offer different languages in that user experience, you know. So again, the standard is really quickly evolving and ready to do it as we talk about expanding synonyms. And it's something I think across the country we need to do as a group because, you know, what we call it in Oregon in natural language may not be what they call it in Virginia in natural language. So, you know, really having the ability to speak and let the system search for you. You can get in your car and, you know, show me all the open houses with this or that today, and let your car drive you. And I think these are things that aren't far out. They're 2 or 3 years away, I think. You really think about what's happening with machine learning, and I say Rob and I kicked around some ideas, entering your listing with your thumb, and we're not talking about the texting kind, we're talking about taking pictures and letting that data speak to you. You know, in the kitchen if there's a dishwasher because it's in your picture. You know about a lot of things if you can get the data out of the picture. I talked to Wallace the other day, and that was a real cool conversation, because at some point we can put metadata into the picture. Yes, that's a freestanding range, but that's a wolf range, and it's got certain attributes. You can maybe drive into a website. There's so many just kind of cool things right on the cusp that are really happening. And I guess that's why Art says, I am excited. The innovation and the rate of things have really picked up, and I think we're just seeing it. Think of all the vendors we have now, and we had few 5 years ago. And every meeting we have new ones and new cool innovative things that are really happening here. As we talk about MLS data feeds, reporting requirements, standardization. So what we're talking there is, you think there's pain for vendors. MoxieWorks has customers across the country, and every month they have to send different reports. Same data, but kind of a different format to all the MLSs who want to know who's using that product. So can we, at least as a best practice, come up with a standard way that you can fill out that form? I've collected, I think, 4 or 5 different MLSs, and the data looks the same. So can we standardize it and make it easy, and just take some of the cost and pain out for our vendors and our MLSs as far as reporting goes? So kind of quickly, that's what we're about. As I say, I'm not trying to tame the beast. That's what these guys do. I just, I feed it, and cool things come out the other side. So that's really where we're at when it comes to that. So I say we meet here Thursday at 10:45. I try and have a monthly call on the first Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific time. And as Mike was saying, to me, Confluence is a great platform. It gives us a place to communicate, because as we know, we're all busy, and it's hard sometimes to carve out that hour, but you can get on the online system and make comments. And I mean, that's where the cool diversity really starts, is that we can read comments from 100 people or so when we're having a discussion. It's not the 20 people on a call. So month to month, we try and get information out there, so we really can collect feedback. And as I say, to me, diversity is the key. So, if you've got 15 minutes and you're interested in anything, get on Confluence and see what people are chatting about, what we're working on. And please give us your thoughts and opinions, because each one matters. And I think, they all should get equal weight, and they should all help us shape this cool standard that we're really bringing home in lots of different ways. So that's really it. I feel really fortunate to have this job. When Jeremy asked me, I wanted to run for the hills. My boss laughed at me and just like, well, go for it, dude. And with his encouragement, and I think the great support that I feel I get from Jeremy and all the staff, it's more fun than sometimes it is work, at least in my role. But again, I'm not trying to wrestle a payload for IDX. We come up with the idea and we cut them loose. So, please join any of us and give us just a little bit of your time and expertise, because, we each have an opinion, and it matters. And I think it makes the best standard we possibly can get. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. So is it for people out there that are wondering, if there isn't like something that if they have an idea for the standard to evolve, and there isn't something covered, your work group is the one, right?
My work group's the one. And come on, that's what we're going to talk about Thursdays. We're really going to try and have an open session where we will be asking for ideas, for thoughts, and where are the rough spots so we can smooth them out.
Yeah, awesome. And so you've heard all of them talk about they hold regular calls, and those are typically done by a go-to meeting. So if they want to get involved in a call and start participating, I should probably know this off the top of my head, but is that on the Confluence site where they can see the go-to meeting links that are regular and get signed up for those? So again, Confluence is the ticket for all of the organizational stuff and how you get involved in any of the particular work groups. They're all listed on the left-hand side, and you can click in and see all of those. So we saved the most important for last, perhaps, right? Certainly from the board of directors' perspective for this particular year, the update specification, the ability to send listings into an MLS system or any listing system for that matter, was one of the highest priorities. Utilization of existing standards was another high strategic priority, but this was right at the top. And so I'm going to turn it over to Paul Stuziak, who runs his own consulting firm, Falcon Technologies, has been involved in standards efforts since I've known you for probably 15 years, I think, and we've been working together, and he's been deeply involved in this process. So thank you for all of that hard work, and tell us about Update.
Thank you. It's always nice to come to a Reso meeting and see so many familiar faces and friends out there, and the anticipation of seeing so many new faces and the chance to get to know you. I'm not Scott, and if you have sleep problems, I'd be happy to share my bio with you and help you out with that, but I've been around for a long time. I was really excited when Jeremy said this was going to be a TED Talks type approach. So I went and searched for TED Talks sausage maker, and I don't know, maybe I typoed it, but I couldn't find anything, so I'm just going to have to, make it up as I go along. But the Transport Workgroup is really where a lot of the work gets done, from getting the data from point A to point B, from the server to the client, from the server to the server. And it's time for glasses, obviously. It's already that time of the day. Awesome. So Web API, which is under the Transport Workgroup, is a way to standardize the way we get it from point A to point B. Previously with RETs, we wrote our own standard. It was pretty close to what the industry was doing out there, but it wasn't a standard recognized in the industry outside of real estate. With Web API, we've tried to go down the path of using existing standards and existing tooling that is out there that will help people to get up to speed a little bit faster. What we've really done inside the standard is to apply constraints against that external standard to say, here's exactly how we expect you to do it so that someone else in the industry can get that data. What we wind up doing is generating documents. We've currently released a new document, 1.0.3, which is coming out of draft. It's going to the board for final approval. That will start the clock for certification, so you should all be looking for that in the next several months to be coming out from the board. As you can see, we do some other things, not only within our industry, but we're finding issues within OData that we're sending back to the OData committee to say, hey, you guys need to fix this because it's not right. We also send recommendations from the Transport Workgroup to other groups that basically say, if we're using OData, then we have to do it this way. I know you guys wanted to do it this way, but here's how OData defines it. So if we want to use these external tools, we have to do it the OData way. We have monthly meetings by GoToMeeting. We also occasionally have in-person meetings. Those are usually somewhere that's mutually convenient. We had one in, I think it was August, was it August? In Seattle, July in Seattle, and had very good turnout and very vigorous discussion around business rules from a computer perspective, which are different from REBER. REBER is important, but we also need expressible computer-generated rules to enforce that at the system level. We've worked out most of the kinks for Update, which is the next unit of work we have for the work group. We'd need to have some help from everyone out here to actually bring that to fruition. We've had really good support, and thank you very much, Mike, for providing some of those resources from your company to help us develop the BNF for the rule language, which is ongoing. We're hoping to get some more resources from some other groups to help us get things done. But it's really important that everyone in this room participate. The Transport Workgroup can be a little bit intimidating because a lot of the people in the group have been around for a very long time and are also very passionate about their technology. And we can have very vigorous discussions around topics, but everyone should know that in the Transport Workgroup especially, if you speak up, I'm listening, we're listening, and you have to express yourself well, but we'll be listening and trying to address your concerns. We've had some humor around, in the meetings in the bar and in hallways, but that is really one of the first ways to get involved in the work group, is to pull someone aside who's in one of those work groups and start talking to them and just say, oh, here's what my concerns are. You don't have to do it in front of the whole group. You don't have to jump in there in the deep water. But any member of the work group, especially transport, is more than happy to talk to you about your concerns, to help you understand how things get done, and to bring you into the work group, because we really, really want to have you participate. We set the standard. We, not just my group, but this group, these groups set the standard, but it's your standard, so you have to help us understand what the issues are, or we'll set them based on our issues. So in summary, we've got 103 complete. We're looking for 1.1, which will include update and any fixes that we find necessary for 103 in sort of the March timeframe. We're hoping to have something a little bit sooner with some new resources. Hopefully, maybe a draft, an early draft by the end of the year. But most likely it's going to be March that we're looking to finalize things for update. And with that, I will hand it back to Michael.
Great. All right, thanks, Paul. So we got a little bit of time left, right? So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions, trying to think from the audience's perspective. If they're out there going, I wonder which one of these I should attend or not. Maybe each of you could, are you looking for technologists, brokers, MLS people, et cetera, or all of the above? If each person could just kind of say, hey, who out there would you like to see come to your group?
So for internet tracking tomorrow, we really need, our subject's going to be device fingerprinting is going to be one of them. So any of you technologists out there that are doing device fingerprinting, please attend and please provide your input. Device fingerprinting is where we're going to try to tackle the subject of a universal ID, where somebody goes from one real estate product to another anonymously, try to capture that data and try to make that informative. So that's one of the keys in tomorrow's discussion, as well as transaction management. Anybody who's doing analytic information there, as well as anybody who's alive and breathing, we want you there tomorrow at 1:30.
And since he's got the alive and breathing, I'll take the dead. No, dictionary isn't that, well, maybe it is that boring. You may think, hey, that's a bit technical, and sure, we have like key fields and timestamps, but the meat and potatoes in the dictionary is about business. So if you have a system and it has at least one field in it, you qualify. So come forward, because these standards mean you've got to implement it. So you might want to have a look in advance of it being handed to you, rather be one of those that hand it to everybody else. I stayed away from saying stick it. Thank you.
Hey, Rob, could you say something quick about the wiki?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. ddwiki.reso.org. The thing that really got me going, and thank you, Bob Gossman, for all the wonderful work on building that out. It's good to see you. What really drove me to want to move forward with a wiki was the idea that the dictionary is about participation. And when you go in and you read a definition, right, and you think maybe it's a little different, as an example, or really anything in there, on whatever page you're on, go down to the bottom and click on the button to submit a comment. Give us feedback. It's really what I hope will be our way of reaching out to not only this community, but out to the brokerage and agent community as well, and really get the conversation around every field and enumeration out there and being a bit more fluid than it is today. So thank you.
I don't know if they are or not. I think
Are
it
these
is.
live?
Live?
Yep,
There we
there
go.
you go.
Oh, no, I'll just sit down.
We've been holding these all this time, we might as well use them.
So really, there's just there's three kinds of people for the UPI group. If you have data that you would like to share, and this is technologist or business models alike. If you have data you'd like to share with people, this is a unique way or a universal way to share that data. You'd be very interested in seeing what we're presenting. By the same token, if you are a consumer and you'd like to consume different kinds of data, we got a story for you as well. And most importantly, if you are a systems integrator and you are a vendor or a technology company that facilitates what we just, for subscribers or providers of data, consumers or providers of data, you really want to be there.
Okay. Generally speaking, transport tends to be a very technical work group and intimidating to people who are not immersed in technology. Having said that, we do need to be slapped around the side of the head once in a while from people who actually have to consume what we produce. In particular, on Thursday, we will be talking about some naming conventions, which seem to be getting a bit of echo here. Some naming conventions that should be useful for everybody to understand because you will have to implement them, and you might actually have a better idea than a bunch of technologists in a back room. So for that perspective, it would be good if people could participate at least at that level. I'll try to keep us out of the weeds because I know we're diving in there. We'll keep it as long as possible. But it tends to be a very technical work group. It's really good to have lots of people participate, though, because more perspectives gives us better solutions. So if you have a technologist on your staff or you contract a technologist, it's probably worth making sure they check in once in a while with the work group to understand where we're going, how that might impact you. Maybe it would be more useful for our work group in particular to start doing more posts, Jeremy, to clarify some of the work we're doing, because I know we get really deep into the technical details sometimes that can be not relevant to the work of many people. But it would be useful if you could show up on Thursday, too.
For the payloads work group, the non-technical, so really it's easy, there's no wall, it's easy to get into the work group and provide your feedback, what you believe should be part of this current IDX payload. Definitely looking for anyone who's doing data aggregation. They're powering websites for brokers and agents. We're, as we said earlier, wrapping up the IDX payload, and I really want to identify and tag the coordinating fields that we need to make sure that once this gets out and gets implemented, that this product is working, that we are getting high utilization, that people are definitely using the payload that it's intended and it's useful, and that we continue the work, and then the next revision is just minor tweaking going forward. So everyone's please, they're welcome to attend the meeting on Thursday at 12:30.
And as you heard, our R&D is very open, and we're really looking for your input. This is what drives the standard. This is what really evolves the standard, and it's on a great pace. But there's always shortcomings. There are things that are changing. Technology is moving at just an incredible, fun pace, and we're trying to think a couple years out. If you really think about visualization, machine learning, those kinds of things, but they're here today, and they are going to impact our business, and we really need to lead that. Rezo is where our IP belongs when it comes to really innovating cool stuff in many ways. So, I encourage you just to come. If you've got some ideas, if you've got some issues with the standard, we're happy to help. And my job then is to chat with these guys and figure out how we implement those things and continue to make it better and better, easier to use, better for brokers, those kinds of things that we're really charged to do in our industry. So please, and again, as I say, if you can't make a call, we don't mind. As all these guys are saying, your voice is what we want to hear, and that can be heard through Confluence, it can be heard through an email, it can be heard through a phone call. But if you really get online to that system, and probably one takeaway I'd encourage you guys to do is to go look at it, because that's where, often very robust discussions go on. And somebody who gets tied up for an hour a month and misses a call really shouldn't miss the opportunity to share their expertise and their ideas.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to, or I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask a question if you have any questions for any of these folks. We just do have a few minutes left over. But before I do that, I just want to echo one thing that Greg was saying about his work group, because R&D can kind of sound technical. Really, it isn't. It's about your business problems. So if you're a broker, an MLS executive, and you've got a pain point, you don't have to express it in technical terms. The idea is to just express it in, hey, this is my pain point. I wish there was a solution for that. It isn't about coming up with a solution. That's what the work groups ultimately do. But R&D is about just expressing something you'd hope to achieve, a goal, or a business need that you have. So really, that's a great work group to come and as I said, feed the monster. And I want to give one more shout out to that wiki. So it was ddwiki.reso.org. And for MLS execs in the room, if you haven't been there, it's awesome. You're sitting in a committee meeting, your group is wanting to add a field. Look it up in the dictionary so that you can, it's just a really easy way to find fields and so that you don't have to invent a name or do it in some non-dictionary way. I think that resource is really awesome. All right, so with that, does anybody have a question that you? Okay.
I have something I'd like to say.
Yes, okay.
I want to make sure that everybody in the audience recognizes the hard work that the participants in the work group put in, and in particular for transport, I see Ash at the back there. Sergio's just left, but Jeff's there. Josh Darnell's at the back, and I just saw someone else. Matt's over there from CoreLogic, and Yvonne. These guys put in time on work for the work groups on the company dime, but they also put in work for the work groups on their own time, and they're really passionate about what they do and the standard, which sounds bizarre, but they really are, and they put a lot of work into it. And I just want to make sure, because I don't ever get to say publicly to anybody what a great job they do and how important they are for the guys who sit up here to actually be able to talk about this. So cheers, you guys. Thanks.
We got about 30 seconds. Any questions at all for the work group?
I have one for Greg. Greg, I'm still waiting on my emoji request in Reds.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen?
That's it, that's the emoji.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody.
It'll be here. Yeah.